Hello there and welcome to another RIABU interview. RIABU is all about being first in line to get paid, and one of the things we're looking at in the world of late 2021 is that there are likely to be many companies of all sizes struggling with cash flow going into 2022 as government support is progressively withdrawn. In fact, Euler Hermes, the German insurance company, anticipate a significant growth in insolvencies in, for example, Singapore. So what we tried to do in our book, Let the Cash Flow, written by myself and Mark Lowdy, is to try and enunciate the 8 things that we think are important for getting paid on time. And we've asked experts in the space to come and talk to us about their views on what it takes to get paid in time. And I'm absolutely delighted to have Edwin with us today. Edwin, you're going to talk a little bit about a couple of areas that you've picked as being of importance. Yeah. Would you first like to say a little bit about the company you work for and your experience? Yeah?
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, Simon, for inviting me to share my experience. I mean, I'm not the expert, I'm just experienced. And your book is really interesting. I've actually mentioned to several of my directors and colleagues, and they say this is a real problem, or, well, it's a real situation that we have to deal with, right? So what I do is...
Well, that's kind of you, so thank you for that.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Please ask them all to buy one.
I'm sure. You autograph for us.
Yeah. With pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm the Chief Executive of Focus Digitech. We are a leading digital transformation enabler, and we are building software platforms for our customers. At the same time, we build our own software as a service platforms in order to give us great predictable revenue. So thank you, Simon.
Okay, well, in that case, when did you, at what point in your career, and you're very senior now, but you weren't always very senior, at what point in your career did you become aware that receivables can be an issue?
Yeah, I would say, when I started managing projects, because I was a project manager in one of the large consulting companies.
Do I know them?
Yeah. Can I mention? Yeah.
Depends what you're going to say about them.
Actually, I used to work for Accenture, Hewlett-Packard, and DXC Technology, and many times I'm one of the senior project managers, and oftentimes accounts receivable is something that our internal team, our AR team, will kind of like pressure us. When is the customer going to pay? When is the customer going to pay? And then we're in the middle, and then we're here trying to deliver the project and then get the deliverable sign off. And then the customer is basically holding back payment because the deliverables are just not to their satisfaction. So when I play that role, I know I have multiple stakeholders. I've got my internal stakeholders that I've got to, kind of like give them the heads up. Okay, the customer is going to pay in the next 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is.
We had a great session earlier today, talking with another senior executive who also talked about the issue of revenue recognition, which is, I think, what you were alluding to there, which is at what point can I actually cut an invoice for the customer that he's happy with and will pay? Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So while that's the issue, what I've done, or our team of project managers have done, is we kind of like cut a good balance, right? And we've actually negotiated with the customer. We've made it very clear upfront. Usually at the kickoff, right, we list down the expected payment milestones and the deliverables tied to it, so that when the project kicks off, everyone is aware.
Do you actually have a face-to-face where you go through these things?
Yes, usually.
Interesting.
Yes, yeah. Well, of course, during the pandemic, we got to do it online, but we do it usually.
But you don't do what a lot of us do, and I'm guilty of this as well, which is in the hurry to get the deal, we specify the sort of price and the deliverables, but we don't spend too much time on the payment details, and then later on, perhaps we come to regret that.
Yeah, and it's true. In most organizations that I've seen, right, they do that, right? The sales just close the sale, then they just throw it to the delivery folks. But because I guess I've got to thank Accenture for that. Good training. In Accenture, usually the account manager is also the delivery manager, right? So you basically own the account, and you don't only worry about the things that are upfront, but you also are concerned about when you deliver what's coming later on, because ultimately it's the payment that feeds the company.
So let's go back. I mean, it's interesting to me. There are 8 main areas that you need to focus on if you want to get paid in time. Do take a look at Let the Cash Flow, and do check out all those areas. In these interviews we're going to talk about different areas, but Edwin, you picked first of all clear credit policy, so let's talk a little bit about your concerns about clear credit policy and the advice that you would give to companies.
So I would say and I've seen a lot of these smaller IT or technology consulting companies, they don't have a clear credit policy, right? Of course, I've seen it. I don't take advantage of it because we want to be a fair business partner. But I would advise them, you should put in your payment terms into your proposal.
So they do business without ever even specifying what their expectations are in terms of invoicing and payment.
That's entirely missing.
Might sound strange, but it's incredibly common, particularly with small businesses and startups. We have a whole chapter for startups in this book, because it's amazing how many entrepreneurs rush into startups. They're full of ideas, they're full of vigor and vim. At the end of the day, they completely forget that if they don't get paid, they're not going to have any money in the bank, right?
Yes, that's
so,
right.
So you've had customers who haven't even bothered to specify.
Correct. Yes. I've got business partners that don't have that because they're small, but I advise them. I give them tips. And they enjoy working with us because of that, right? Because we are fair. And what we do is, in the proposal stage, even before the contract is signed, even before we win it, we are upfront in our proposal. These are the payment milestones. These are the deliverables tied to it, and this is when we break it down, right, to the customer. Of course, the customer may come back and says, "Okay, we disagree. Can you adjust?" But at least it's upfront, right? And many times I will ask for, because we are in services, we ask for maybe a 20% or 30% even of the service fee upfront. And then upon contract award, you pay me 20-30%. This helps us in our cash flow, right? Not all will agree, right? Because sometimes you work with government agencies or banks where they're big, right? So they'll insist, no, we don't pay until. Okay, at least we propose.
I know, and I could do my cash flow forecast.
Correct.
Another important thing to do. It just occurs to me that clearly, if you're a small company and you've not got a credit policy, you may not know what it is. So perhaps we should just provide a definition of what a credit policy is. It's a short document which specifies the terms on which you invoice and when you expect to be paid.
Correct. The terms usually, when I invoice, you expect payment to be in within 30 days, for example. Sometimes it's not even stated within how many days. Then you leave it up in the air. Then when you send the invoice out, the customer will take his own sweet time because you didn't say.
You haven't specified that. I think it is worth saying, if I may add, Edwin, that many large companies have very lengthy credit policies because the corporate lawyers get at them, and the next thing you know, it's 16 pages long. We do provide in the book, and I do urge you to look at this, particularly if you're a startup or you're a small and medium-sized enterprise, we do provide a one-page credit policy, which is a simple document which we think covers all bases. And those bases would include, what we're providing, what the order policy is, when we expect to be paid, how we deal with any discrepancies which occur, because this is really, really important, because this may regularly occur. So the credit policy is important. And you sound like a very nice company to do business with, because you even tell people when they haven't got a credit policy.
Yes, because we like to do things fairly, right? It's fair business. Of course, that said, majority of our customers are nice, right? Even if they have cash flow issues, we always negotiate. And even if they miss the payment terms, maybe we'll propose kind of like installment plans for them to, kind of catch up with the payments. Most of our customers are like that.
So we talk about, we're straying slightly away from credit policy here, but the installment payments, so, one of the things we talk about in the book is diminishing balance. So if you want to go on doing business with a company, but they clearly aren't meeting their payment requirements, but they're solvent, you want them to pay you slightly more than the invoice that you're sending, so that the balance goes down. So that's a very sensible solution to a cash flow challenge.
Correct. Yes.
Which prevents your customer going over the edge.
Correct. Yes. And of course, there are also other tools or solutions we can tap on, like there's invoice factoring. And one of my good friends, he just started a new fintech. is about supply chain financing.
Okay.
Maybe you should. I'll get him to read the book.
Well, I do. Well, I'm afraid I give supply chain and manufacturing rather a hard time in the book, and the reason I do that is because the phenomenon that Mark and I do that is that the phenomenon we've seen over the last 2 years is because there's so much cash around, because of a policy of quantitative easing. There's lots of money. Everyone's trying to lend money, not just banks, but other intermediaries and disruptive, lenders. The problem with that is that if you're a company that isn't very good at organizing your receivables, in other words, if you're not doing any of the things that we put in this book, it's too easy just to, instead of concentrating on doing what you need to do to get paid, it's too easy to go to a lender and borrow money, in historical terms at relatively low rates. But the reality is you can only take that so far. Yeah. What happens when you can't borrow any more money and you're still not being paid on time?
Yeah. Well,
so with all due respect to your friend, we're delighted always to partner with companies that are lending money, but what we would say is do the very best to ensure that you get paid according to terms. If you're borrowing money to make up for a gap in your own processes or culture, that may lead you into all kinds of trouble. Yeah. I wonder, Edwin, there's lots more to be said about that. There's indeed a whole chapter in the book, as you would expect. Let's talk a little bit about balanced scorecard, because you picked that. So tell us first of all what you understand by balanced scorecard.
Well, for balanced scorecard, it's about everyone in the organization that's involved in the account to also be involved in the collection of payments. All right. Many times when we talk about payments, we always say, it's finance, accounts.
We
right?
do, don't we?
Right. And actually, the reality is they're just the ones that process the invoice or whatever it is, the paperwork. Who actually deals with the customer? It's actually the project manager, the salesperson, the account manager, we like to call them. And in my company, for example, we do pay good commissions to our salespeople who close deals. But because we are a services company, their commissions only get paid when the collections are in. So it throws the onus back on the account manager to stay engaged with the customer, right? To make sure that the customer
because it hurts him in the pocket.
Correct.
If the money doesn't come in on time.
Yes.
We should make that clear, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So when we say balanced scorecard, you're measuring people on the same outcomes, but you're also relating that to their variable remuneration or bonus, or whatever you want to call it.
And it's really like a teamwork, right? It's like a football game where it's not only the striker, right? You've got a defender that
because the salesman's spending way more time with the account. It's quite possible that the person in the back office, who may be in finance or supply chain, who's dealing with the collections, has never even met the account.
And no relationship.
Yeah,
right?
So that's quite hard.
Correct.
And I absolutely recognize what you're describing. You're describing a very common situation. The other thing I think is that those people that are responsible for the collections are often not very senior and not very well paid. They're sort of administrative. So balanced scorecard is about ensuring that there's a shared responsibility, if I can use that term.
Correct, yes.
And about ensuring that the person that has the relationship is available and ready to have conversations about timely payment. Does that require educating them sometimes?
Yes, you do.
Because the project manager may not be very comfortable with having that discussion.
Yeah. So what we've done is whenever we actually at the interview, before we even onboard a candidate into our company, let's say for a sales role, right? We made it clear, right? This is your expectation. You own the account. We basically say you're not like a gadget salesman,
Brilliant.
right?
Not a widget salesman.
Widget salesman, right? You're an account manager, so therefore
you own the relationship.
You own the relationship.
Yeah.
And anything else that comes through the customer, it may be the first deal, and the first deal may be a small, like 5 figures, but then when you do a good job, when you motivate our delivery team to do a good job, then the 6-figure, the 7-figure deals will come, right? It's all about,
whatever size your company, whoever has the relationship with the customer, if you're offering credit, needs to be aware of the basis for the credit and needs to be ready to have conversations with the customer so that you communicate that you as an organization take it seriously. Isn't it the case that in many companies they get on with providing the good and the service, and the issue of payment isn't even mentioned until after the invoice becomes overdue?
Correct. Yeah. And then when you when cash flow is, is a problem for your company, then you cannot pay your staff, right?
And it's probably already late because
right, yes.
if you're not pushing collection until it's already overdue, then you're kind of creating a dynamic. It's like me when I always pay the SP services bill when it's red. It's the same kind of thing. So engaged, motivated sales team. It's actually easy to. A balanced scorecard is easy to describe, but not that easy to do. I mean, one area which is another part of the virtuous revenue cycle, which is top-down ownership. I mean, it follows that if you're having a balanced scorecard, that the senior managers of the company, who may sometimes get to meet some of these large accounts, they've got to walk the walk as well, right?
Correct, yes.
Because I remember I was at a trade fair a year or so ago with Mark Lowdy, and we had some guy come up. He said, we had this credit policy, it was going really, really well. And then the CEO went in to see them, and they said they didn't want to pay. And the CEO said, okay, don't. So you've got someone that's kind of giving away the shop.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was an extreme example. Yeah. But so you need this balanced scorecard to be led right from the top.
Correct, yes. Yeah, it has to have executive ownership, right? And even in the scenario you describe, if let's say a customer wants to deviate from your credit policy, the CEO or the owner should not be the only one making the call, right? He needs to come back and like the balance scorecard, right? Yeah. Speak with everyone. Okay, this is the situation. Do we agree? Look at the risk management, etc. And then, and everyone goes in eyes open.
So it should be part of your DNA.
Yes,
that's brilliant. Edwin, it's really good of you to come in and talk to us. Any other advice for companies struggling with receivables issues?
Well, I would say the money is yours, right? Don't be shy to ask for it, because you're providing a service, a product that solves your customers' problems. So they must and they should pay you on time, if not ahead of time. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Edwin. It's all about letting the cash flow. We anticipate having serious challenges in 2022 as many companies stare insolvency in the face as government subsidies step away. Get ahead of things. Make sure that you have got the 8 critical things in place to ensure that you're first in line to get paid. Thank you.